When people use the word accountability, they often use the term negatively because holding someone accountable often just means punishing them for screwing up or doing something bad.
Accountability hasn't been talked about much as a virtue. And so what we're trying to do is to name this often implicit and really important element of healthy relationships so that we can help to understand it and cultivate it in an intentional kind of way.
We've involved philosophers and theologians and psychologists and sociologists because we want to see how does this translate into the world. Because if you have a virtue, it ought to show itself in the way you live. And if it shows itself, then it should be something that we can in some way describe and maybe even measure.
We were able to develop two different scales, one on transcendent accountability, one on human accountability.
And there are different conceptions of God, of course. But people who think that we're accountable to something beyond ourselves, we call that transcendent accountability. One philosopher has argued that the moral life itself involves a kind of accountability relationship to all other humans, what he calls the human moral community. We flourish in relationships, so gratitude, it's a virtue you can have, but you can't exercise it unless somebody does something nice for you. Forgivingness is a virtue, but you don't have to forgive someone unless they've harmed you. So there are certain virtues that you can't put them into play except in a relationship. One of the areas that we're bringing our study in relationship to is the criminal justice system.
Criminologists have studied the idea that people can change. There are those that think that's not possible, but we have really great data that shows, in fact, people can change and that they do change over time. If an inmate develops a transcendent accountability, an accountability to God that is authentic, then they're much more likely to be accountable to others around them. I remember one time I interviewed a prisoner and I thought, he had terrible attitude. He participated in the faith-based program. And if his colleagues, if you had asked them, what's the likelihood that he's going to make it when he gets out? They all would have said, oh, he'll be back in weeks. He made it. And I interviewed him on the outside, along with his mentor. And I said, how did you do it? No one thought you could. And he said, it was my mentor. I couldn't let him down. This issue of accountability was huge because someone loved him enough to invest in him for weeks and months and years. And so the identity transformation is very, very powerful. And it's something that's not only possible for offenders, of course, it's possible in the free world for people to have a new identity. It's liberating. And so for us, we want to understand the connection between purpose, meaning, hope, and accountability of trying to figure out how to restore lives.
I think we have a deep longing to be in relationship with people who will fulfill their commitments to us. And I think we long to be the kind of people who can fulfill our commitments to others. Those kinds of things have massive implications for marriages, for families, for communities, future generations who will live with the impact of what we do.